Hey, it's Toina, and welcome to the Guiding Principles Bible Study. Do you often see a vision in your mind about where you're supposed to be? Do you have this deep knowing inside of you that tells you you're meant for something more, but for some reason you can't figure out how to get there? You just feel like you can't reach that place. Well, that's what we're talking about tonight. Exactly what we're talking about tonight. And we're going to answer how you are going to go from what you see in your head to what you see in real life. Let's get started. The Father gives all of us vision. However, something stands in our way of believing it. And so the key that I want you to understand is that the belief is what makes or breaks our vision. If we don't believe that we can make something happen deep down, then we struggle to see it come to pass. So, how is it that you know whether or not you believe? The answer is so simple. Remember, everything with the Father is simple. If you truly believed, nothing would stop you from getting there. What it is that stands in our way is our lack of belief, both in the vision that we see and in our ability to make that happen. And that's where the real problem comes in, is that we begin to think that we don't have the ability to do it. We're not good enough. We're not saying the right things. We're not doing the right things. There's something about us that is not enough. And because we don't believe that we are enough, what we sit back and do is we go, at some point, this is going to happen, like it's going to be magical. And just one day we're going to wake up and this is what happens. If you wait on that to happen, if you wait on that specific thing for it to just pop out of the blue for you one day, it doesn't. You see, we are designed to work. That's why when God put Adam in the garden, he set him up to work. He was going to have to work the land and tend the animals and tend the fields. This was all part of what Adam had to do. We are designed to work. Sitting idly by, that's a new thing, but that's not how we get where we want to go. The man that I love the most, you all know because I've talked about him many times, is Myron Golden. And Myron Golden always says, disruption follows intention. What that means is this: when you intend to do something, like bring about the vision you see in your head, disruption is automatically going to follow. Things are going to fall apart and you're going to be like, this isn't working. What was I thinking? How do I overcome this? When we make a decision, the disruption immediately comes. For some people, it's that your family goes crazy. All of a sudden, your kids need things. Your spouse needs things. You go to start everything and every door seems to close in front of you. And the more you try to do it, the more the door is closed. My favorite thing are the stories when people talk about how they wanted to do something. And after 100 or more tries later, that door finally opened. All those closed doors were the disruption. You see, what's supposed to happen during disruption is that your drive to succeed becomes stronger. What happens to most people is that our desire to quit grows exponentially instead of the drive to succeed. And that's where we suffer. Here's what happens, and here's what it looks like when the disruption comes. First, we freeze. We get stuck. And we start to imagine that it's happening, and we daydream about it happening, but we're too afraid to make any moves because we're frozen in the disbelief that we have what it takes to be that person. We don't believe that we can be successful in that particular area. And here's the irony. You can be successful in 1,000 areas of your life, but there can be one area where you just don't believe you have what it takes. And that's the area that you have to become strong in. Because until you do, it's not going to change. Next, we become fearful and we don't know what to do. Or, how do I know I'm in fear is the question that we ask. And here's how you know it's because you run out of things to do, or you're not sure what to do. You can't figure out what the step is. And instead of reaching out to someone, you just kind of sit back and go, I don't know what to do. Or when people bring you ideas, you go, oh, I can't do that. No, I don't think that's it. No, I think it's something else. Instead of just going and trying it and seeing what happens, you freeze and you just can't move. That's something that happens when we get caught in the disruption. We experience confusion, resulting in a long and extended pause. We're not sure which way to go. And so all of a sudden we get back in that place of freeze. We get back in that fear. And now we don't want to move forward. We don't know how to move forward, and we don't know what the best thing is. These are all things that we do. Anger sets in. We become hateful and vindictive. We get angry at the world and we start blaming everybody around us. Our parents didn't do, our spouse didn't do, our kids didn't do, if they didn't. And then we get caught in that anger and it forces us to quit. But it's not because God didn't have a plan for us. It's because we got angry that we didn't see it happen the way we expected that it should, the way that we wanted it to happen. And usually the way that we want it to happen means that we don't have to do a whole lot of work for it. We put forth one little itty bitty toe inside that water, and then we go, oh, this isn't going to work, and we move on. That's not how it goes. You've got to be willing to commit, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Finally, when disruption hits, we quit and completely stop believing. And that's how dreams become unfulfilled. That's how we end up in a dark space where we don't think we can ever be anything more than someone who works a 9-to-5 or someone who is just a mediocre parent. We don't believe that we have what it takes. This is how we kill ourselves. This is how we destroy everything about who we are and why we stop growing and why we stop being motivated and why we stop moving in life. I don't want to see that for you because it doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's just having a simple way that it's laid out as to how you proceed forward. That makes a change. That makes a difference for you. We allow our negativity to take control. Operating in disbelief destroys us from the inside out. Let me explain that. Everything that we go through begins in our mind. Our mind is hands down the most powerful thing in the human body. I want you to understand something. The brain is incapable of being successful. It is either going to successfully grow you or it's going to successfully destroy you. But it's going to be a success at whatever it's told it needs to do. If you will remember that your mind, your brain, is a computer and you fill it with information, it is only going to give you what you give it to give you. So if I want to move to a new level, then I have to renew my mind and say, I don't accept these things that work against where I want to go. You see, disbelief shows us that we don't trust and that we don't believe the truth. It prevents us from seeing the truth. The truth is written about us in the Word. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. We will be like a tree planted by the river, and in its season, that tree is going to produce fruit. But we have to daily be working toward it. You see, whenever we're in the valley, it makes us think we're stuck and there's no way out. The valley is the place where ultimately we will spend the most time in the valley. Mountaintops come and mountaintops go. And at the end on the other side of every mountaintop is another valley. And we have to understand that every time we hit a mountaintop, we should be moving to a different mountaintop. If the mountaintop keeps looking the same, it means you're in a loop, and that loop has to be broken. So how do we break loops? We have to make decisions, but we'll go into that in a minute. The valley is where the reason we hang out in the valley so long is because when we're in that valley, after we come off that mountaintop, we go back into the place of not believing. We go back into that place where we're like, I can't do it. But tonight I'm here to tell you that you can. And I don't want you to take my word for it. I want to show you something that's really important. Before we go into the next section, I want to take you in to Isaiah 55:7. And so you know, we did not forget the Bible verse. Here we go. Let's start with number 7. Let the wicked change. I'm sorry, guys. It seems there was a problem. Let the wicked change their ways and banish the very thought of doing wrong. Let them turn to the Lord that he may have mercy on them. Yes, turn to our God, for he is willing to forgive generously. Now listen. Let's go back to 7 for a second so we can discuss this line by line. Because tonight we're going to build line upon line and precept upon precept. So let's go back to 7, and I want you to read it as we talk about it. Let the wicked change their ways and banish the very thought of doing wrong. So let's take this and break it down into a bite-sized morsel. When God tells us that we are going to accomplish something, our mind must be that we are going to accomplish that thing. And when we disagree with God, we instantly become one of those people who's wicked, because there's no reason for you to not trust God. Absolutely zero reason. He is the one person who cannot lie. If he tells you it's coming, it's coming. Now your job is to wait on that promise to come and to keep working toward that promise. What will you need in place when that promise hits? Because at some point that promise is going to hit. The question is, will you be ready to receive that promise? And so we become wicked when we don't trust what he's saying. We have to banish the thought that it's not going to happen. And when we choose not to do that, then we are going to continue to live outside of what God has for us. And at some point, he will get frustrated with us and let us be on our own until we are sick and tired of doing it our way. The verse then tells us to turn to the Lord that he may have mercy on us. Yes, turn to our God, for he will forgive generously. When he forgives generously, that doesn't mean that you lost the blessing. Depending on the time when you make that transition determines whether or not that blessing still is yours. I want to share something with you. Years ago, I was given a vision, and I saw this vision from beginning to end, and I knew that it was coming. And one day, something happened, something catastrophic happened, and a part of me was destroyed. And the cut was so deep. And I want to tell you about those cuts, because the reality is that even though it's not a physical scar, it is a physical/proverbial scar. We had some things that were taken from us that we were not able to get back. And it caused us to have to go through a battle that I just didn't have the energy to go for. The vision started coming to pass. The things that I was going to need the things that I had been told were going to happen started to open up. The doors were ready to open, and I had to make a decision. Do I continue to walk in disbelief, or do I make a different choice? In my case, I chose to make a different choice. And by the time that vision was ready to come to pass, everything I needed was in place. But do you want to know how many times I had made a different choice in the past? You see, we have to understand that God is always for us. The world is not. And you got two forces working against you. God is never against you. He's always for you. That's how you know you will overcome. But the world is never for you. They are always in the mindset that there's not enough to go around. But there's more than enough. It's time for you to believe that there is more than enough. Let's go to verse 8. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. You see, I want you to think about this. When you're in a plane, does the earth look the same as when you are standing on the ground walking through a town? No. As the Alpha and the Omega, the man who can see the beginning from the end, things don't look the same to him. The beauty of having God be on our side is that he sees the things that we can't see. He knows the outcome that we can't see. When we can't use our eyes to see where it is that we're going, we need to trust that his vision is a whole lot better than ours. And so for some of us, it means closing your eyes and walking forward into that vision. Even when you're not sure how it's going to come to pass, it's not up for you to determine how. Just know that it will. And be ready for your next step. That's what he's saying to you in that verse. Let's go to 9. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. He knows our way out every single time. And just as I shared with you that the heavens are higher than the earth, when you're in that plane and you're above the earth, your field of vision is very different. Interestingly enough, if you're flying over the US, you start to realize that as they talk about how we're running out of space, there's a lot of space out there. We're not running out. But it sounds really good when I want to charge you $1 million for a house in a regular neighborhood. If you don't pay attention to what's real, you will keep staying in the valley. You will keep yourself caught in that fear that's keeping you frozen. Let's go to 10. For as the rain cometh down, and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower, and bread to the eater. You're already set up to win. And that's what he's telling you in verse 10. I've already set you up to win. The rain has to come, and the snow has to come, because that's how it waters the seeds that have been planted, that you have been a part of planting. And in order for them to grow, they have to receive that rain. Stop begrudging the rain. The rain is your best friend, because without it, nothing grows. Let's go to 11. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. Let me break that down so you understand exactly what that means. God is saying very simply, when I say it, it will come to pass. And every time I say it, it will come to pass. Now you got to walk in that, and you got to believe it. And you have to trust in the people that he has sent you to walk with. And you have to believe that they're doing their part. And instead of looking at what you can and can't do based off of a simple salary, based off of what limited resources you have in your hands, you have to understand that what he's looking for is you to trust that he's with you. As long as you understand that he is with you, you will continue to be able to move forward. So, how do I overcome my disbelief? The first thing you do is when you make a decision, when you finally decide, everything you accomplish in life begins with that decision, and you know it. And the reason that you begin to know it once you make a decision is because everything inside of you begins to come alive, and it begins to work in a way that is going to help you. Now, if you've been entrenched in fear for an extended amount of time, first thing that will rise will be the fear to stop you and to tell you that this is crazy. But if you will pass through that fear, then the fire begins to ignite. And next thing you know, every single thing that you are doing begins to move in the direction of the decision that you made. You have to decide that you're just passing through this period and that you didn't come to stay. Because it's when you decide against that you end up stuck and you end up going back in circles. Let me explain this to you. There was a man I once worked with. This was, over a decade and a half ago. And he had made a decision that he couldn't have the things that were necessary for grown-ups to have. And in his particular case, his number one issue was a driver's license. And so here was this middle-aged man who would have a driver's license for a few years and then go out and do stupid stuff like drink and drive and all that stuff, and he would lose his driver's license. And what happened? He would rack up a whole bunch of fines, and I'm talking thousands of dollars worth of fines, and then couldn't overcome them. He would lose his driver's license again, and then he would have to drive without it. He would go into small areas and cause scenes and make an ass of himself, lose everything, and then go, what have I done? You see, that's that cycle I was talking about. That is the perfect example of what it looks like when someone is caught going through the process. They're not trying to make it to the other side. They're caught in the very center of the worst part of the journey that they're not supposed to stay in. And so because he would not fix his mindset, he kept recycling the same problem over and over and over again. And as it would come time for him to get his stuff back, as he would get closer to the option of being successful, he would go and create another problem, get himself more tickets, do more things. I mean, it was ridiculous. There was nothing that stopped this man from destroying his life on a consistent basis. That's someone who is stuck in the through. And that's not what God designed you to be. You see, we allow ourselves to get fearful when we don't trust in what we see. Or if we partner with someone who has the vision and we're terrified of that vision. We do things that will undercut them instead of help move to the next level. We don't invest time where time is needed to be invested. Instead, we'd rather invest money and not have to invest time, or not have to be part of making the decisions that are necessary to be successful. And that's how you cut out the legs from underneath someone. That's how you slow down processes. That's how you create chaos. And that's how you create chaos and struggle within a situation when the outcome is still the same every single time, it's because there are things that we are not willing to let go of. We are stuck. We are staying stuck. We're not moving. We're not doing any of the things that we need to do to move forward. And that's the problem. So, once I've made the decision, what do I do next? You see, you're going to pass through the valley one day. Where do you want to be on the other side of that valley? Where do you want to be when the pain and the hurt that you're feeling right now is behind you? Do you want to be in the same space where you started? Or do you want to be in a new place? One that's getting you closer to where you want to go? That's the number one question you have to ask yourself, so that when you are sitting down and making your plan, you can do so and be successful. And that begins by visualizing where you want to go. That's your key. You have to see where you're at on the other side. You have to see the completion of the project, and you have to see the beauty that it's going to bring to your life. If you refuse to allow yourself to indulge in that, what you will end up doing is completely missing your opportunity. And that's where our biggest problem comes in, is that we struggle to visualize. Now listen, visualization does not require you to close your eyes. It doesn't require anything from you except that you sit down and look at where you want to be. Allow your face to smile, to enjoy that moment, to feel the joy. When I think about our trip to Bali, where our program is going to be when Masters of Reinvention goes to Bali, I imagine my feet inside the sand. I imagine the white sandy beaches and what it's going to look like inside the elegance of that hotel that we're in. I imagine all the people sitting around excited to be there, ready to change everything they know about life. And every day that makes it easier for me to see what it is I need to plan, what the menu is going to look like, what the table is going to look like, how they're going to make it through an entire day, what's going to be available to them. You don't have to close your eyes. You just have to be willing to free yourself from the space that you're in right now. And when you do that, what happens is that you begin to have breakthroughs, because now all of a sudden you see what the plan is. You have to see it, because if you don't see it, you will not achieve it. So, if that's what it takes, I have to see the plan. Is there anything I have to do after I see the plan? There is another step, and it's called write down the plan. You have to write it in order to cement your vision. And I want you to understand this, that writing that vision down doesn't just cement it because I say so or because human beings say so. It is actually a biblical concept. Let's look at some of the verses, just a few of them that talk about write it down. Let's start with Habakkuk 2:2. The Lord said to me, write my answer plainly on tablets. Let's look at Deuteronomy 31:19. So write down the words of this song and teach it to the people of Israel. Let's look at Ezekiel 24:2. Son of man, write down today's date, because on this very day, you got to write it down. Exodus 34:27. Then the Lord said to Moses, write down all these instructions. It's a biblical concept that we write this stuff down. Now, what does that mean? Do I have to sit down on a piece of paper and actually write it down? In some cases, yes. But let me tell you what also works. If I find a house that I fall in love with and I want, I will print up a copy of the front page of that house. And on the bottom of that piece of paper, I will write date received. And I'll draw a line so that when I get it, I can write in the date. That's also visualizing. Doesn't have to just be words. It can also be a picture. And that will show you what it is that you have an expectation of. Remember, when you stop expecting, your body will begin to die because it thinks you're done. Make sure that you really want to be done before you start writing that statement. Before you start telling yourself, I can't, I can't, I can't. Decide, do you really want this to be your end? Because if the answer to that is no, then you got to write it down. You got to put a picture with date received so you know when God makes it happen. It's building an altar to the Lord. And that's one of the things that keeps us motivated through those seasons of valley. So what happens after I make the plan and I visualize the plan and then I write it down? Executing the plan means that you start from the beginning and you work all the way to the end. It's one of the best things that you will ever do for yourself. When you start at the beginning, it will look larger than life, but it won't take long for it to start to come into focus and for you to be able to see each step. Remember, the beginning is easy, the middle is a nightmare, the end is a beauty. Always, always, always remember, no matter what it is you're doing, you have to walk through the process. You have to start at the beginning, have all that excitement, and then create altars while you're going so that when you hit the middle and it feels like you can't keep going, you have something to look back on and remind you of all the things that were done. I want you to remember that. That middle is always overcome by having writings and documentations of everything that you've gone through. And that's how you execute the plan. You start at the beginning, you make sure you're strong enough to pass through that middle, and you get to the end so that you can see the success in real life that you see in your mind. So what do we do after we come to the end of the executed plan? It's time to get out of the valley. It's time to celebrate. And that's where I want you to reach that place where you sit back and you have something set for you to celebrate. It doesn't matter what it is. You can throw a party, you can go out to dinner, you can have a board game night, you can do whatever your mind can conceive of to celebrate. Exiting the valley is when we celebrate our accomplishments. You've done it. You've been successful. And you should be proud of yourself. And you did it well. And the reason you know you did it well is because while you were in the middle struggling through it, you didn't quit. You didn't cut corners. You said, I'm going to make this the best that it can be. And that's what you ultimately ended up creating. So, this is how you take your visions and make them come to pass. This is how you become successful at everything you set your plan forth to do. This is how you make yourself the dynamo that God designed you to be. And through this whole process, you rely on His vision and not yours. The last thing I want you to remember is this. Your eyes will always lie to you. They don't tell you the truth. When it looks like everything is against you, the Father is for you. That's why you close your eyes. That's why you see through His vision and not your own. You can accomplish everything He has put inside of you. You just have to want to. And you have to want to trust that your Father loves you. And no matter what the world throws at you, you and Him are going to knock it down and make it through. If you love this video, I need you to hit the like button. Then I need you to hit the subscribe button and then ring that notification bell. Make sure that you know every time we upload a new video. And just so you know, we're going to be moving into our Pay No More series. That's going to start. It'll be running either on Monday or Wednesday. We haven't decided what day, but in the next couple of weeks, we're going to start unleashing that so that when it comes to dealing with day-to-day life, when you have decisions that you have to make for your family, your friends, your future, you have some place to go where you can learn, how do I decide this? What are the questions that I ask? It's a dynamic series, and it's the part of our company that I personally love the best, because when you learn how to think, you can accomplish everything you have and see in your mind. I look forward to seeing you next time.